So welcome to Virtual Dalcroze Meetup number 11. My host, Veronica Boleski, and I are excited to see everybody here and to have a nice crowd. We are recording, and we're recording with the intention of posting this recording to our webpage, just so that people who missed it today can look back and get a little click in. So if you're uncomfortable with the recording, turn off your video and maybe take your name off the screen. And otherwise, we're excited to see you and to together. Our protocol for many of these meetings has been to take not more than about 4 minutes to say hi to each other and introduce yourself to a small group rather than taking time for everybody to introduce everyone. It'll take long to go through 20. So I'm going to quickly make some breakout rooms here, and we're going to try to get 3 or 4 people in a room. So you'll be sent to a room, say okay, and then just introduce yourself to the other people in the room, tell them where you live and who you teach. And then in 3 minutes, I'll call everybody back. Ready, set, go. Get a couple weeks to just finish out my summer before all this fall insanity is about to start up. Hey everyone, I think we're about all back. Someone, Mary, said, well, that was rather quick. And it was, I'm sure it was. I'm sure that was faster than you could have filled up. I'm sure any one of those random groups of 3 or 4 people could have spent 20 minutes talking to each other. You know why? Because this is us. This is our community. These are your people. These are the people who are invested enough in these ideas to want to show up on a random summer's day and spend an hour talking about these ideas. If I'd let you in the breakouts any longer, though, we wouldn't get to our agenda, which we want to share collectively today. Before we get into that, we usually have a couple announcements. So there's a masterclass coming up. Veronica, you want to share any announcements?
Yes, so Sandra's masterclass is this weekend. You can still sign up if you haven't already. You can also sign up for you can sign up for Ava's and Monica's class to get that video recording. Unfortunately, we lost Michael's recording. And so Michael will be teaching a 5th class in August. And so anyone who registered for Michael's class the first time is able to come again for free, because we want Michael to have a beautiful recording for his portfolio. And you're all able to sign up for Michael's class if you missed it the first time. So there's a 5th class on the schedule. And then we have one more VDM meetup like this, a discussion meeting scheduled for August. And then we'll be taking the rest of August off, and stay tuned for announcements about the fall. We're definitely going to keep this group going in the fall. We're just trying to finalize things.
Mary, is that a question, Mary?
No, can I make an announcement that Dalcroze UK is running some online courses. We're doing an online summer school, and if you look at the Dalcroze UK website or the Facebook group, you'll see some of us are running. Anita and Monica and I and Selma and I are certainly running sessions, and Catherine Kay as well. So Dalcroze UK doing doing a summer school.
Very good. Excellent. Good. Well, then the agenda for the day.
So the agenda is in the VDM document, which I'll paste into the chat. And we're going to spend 15 minutes each on 3 questions. We don't have presenters lined up, so anyone is able to jump in if they have either a question to propose or an idea. And then at the end of today, we have a couple kind of going forth questions and announcements. Rebecca Hampel, if you're willing to share your question about seniors and Dalcroze teaching, or I can summarize for you our email exchange. And then Elena Aro is one of our theater presenters, and she has created a project about best practices in theater teaching, and she wanted us to get involved with that. So she'll pop in for the last 10 minutes of this meeting and share briefly about that. So I think with that, we're ready for our first question. And what we'll ask is that you can raise your hand or type in the chat if you have a question or a comment or a proposal. And We are gently going to ask you to keep your speaking to 3 minutes at a time so that we have space for everyone. And if you want to speak again later, you're very welcome to. So it's not to say that we don't want to hear from you if you have a lot to share, but just to give room for people to keep it to 3-minute chunks of speaking.
Veronica,
Yes.
do we maybe want to, I helped Veronica come up with this agenda. Do we maybe want to do 12 minutes for each question just because I feel like time is already running a little short?
Sure. Thank you. Absolutely. So our first question, and I'll paste it also, is what are strategies for teaching in person while following social distancing requirements like 6 feet apart or wearing masks? And it can be any age of students. So go forth and discuss.
I'll lead off just an idea that was brought up, I believe, at one of the earlier meetings, which was the hula hoop, the home base of the hula hoop. When I was first teaching little kids, one of the first things that we try to help them understand is their space in the room. Because we're not at desks, we're trying to make good use of the room, and yet we don't want them to feel lost in that large space. And so one thing that is often used is either a hula hoop or maybe sometimes dots or sometimes grids that are marked out on the floor one way or another. And then we give people that as their home base. I believe that it was in one of these meetings that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, the idea of having adults or college students or anybody stand in their hula hoop as a way of defining what space they have. And then maybe with an older student and maybe younger too, there may be ways to choreograph switching hoops, trading, while maintaining our distance. Maybe everybody jumps to a hoop to the right or what have you. But thinking about getting this sense of what is 6 feet or 12 feet apart, depending on where you're at, we thought that maybe markings on the floor may be of some good use. What all do you think? Anita? Oh, you're muted, Anita.
I think one of the difficulties in UK at the moment is that we are being told that we're not allowed to have children on the floor because they have to sit on chairs, and they have to have chairs, and then we clean the chairs after each group of children. And as the teachers, we are very much at the other end of the room, and we have to be well distanced. So the children that come in, they are in their own group, as it were, and they travel around the school together. But as the music teacher, because we see lots of groups, we have to be very much away from them. So I am planning to do as much work as I can in the autumn outside. Just going to try and be outside, and they won't be sitting down very much. And not really using recorded music very much. I'm going to try and keep it live music all the time with me playing for them, because I don't want it to just become a sitting down lesson on a chair, especially because lots of the children I teach are very young children as well. So we're going to be on the field. There is pressure on the outdoor space as well, because all of the outdoor spaces at school are going to have staggered play times, people coming into school at different times, leaving at different times. So trying to define an area which is going to be music space outdoors, that's going to be my challenge. Obviously in some schools they have less grounds than others, but I love the idea of the hoop, but we're just not going to be allowed to have them on the carpet.
Right. In your school, would they be permitted to stand beside their desk?
There are desks. In my music room I have no desks. I've got a carpeted floor, so normally it's brilliant, really.
Right.
But it's the soft furnishings that they're worried about, virus on the soft furnishings you see on the floor. And
I see. So, but if it's a bad weather day and you can't go outside, will your students be in desks in some room?
They will be inside, and I'll have to do different activities, but not necessarily rhythmics-based ones. I'll be doing other music activities, but just not necessarily rhythmics ones.
And will they be in desks and chairs?
They'll just be on. I've got like little stools. They each have their own stool.
Very good. So if they have a stool, are they allowed to sit on the stool? Or are they allowed to stand beside the stool?
Yeah, they can. They can sit on the stools, and they can obviously stand by the stools, but they couldn't swap to somebody else's stool.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's an opening there. Those are brilliant ideas, and I love the idea of getting outside. I'm going to do more of that as well with my university students, which I'll mention again maybe in a little bit. But the idea of of closed environments, and closed environments without a lot of room to move is one that we've talked about other times. Like, what if, even if it wasn't COVID and my school has not given me the beautiful room that doesn't have, that with the big open space, what sorts of things can we do in limited space? And this is really sort of an amplified version of limited space. If you are stuck in a room and they can sit in their chair, they can stand beside their chair, but maybe your school does not permit them to sort of noodle around. Any other ideas for those or others? I'll just, in the pause, I'll just point out that when teaching Dalcroze pedagogy, we're in this same kind of thinking all the time, where we think, okay, we got a hook this far in, we've got an idea, we've got the beginning of something. Now, what are the 20 things we could do from here? And this really isn't just the COVID edition. This, to me, is just standard Dalcroze pedagogy brainstorming, where we think, well, I've got students, they're in a grid in my room on their little stools. What could I do from here? Or I am permitted hula hoops. What could we do from there? Or I get to go outside. Okay, what could we do there? Veronica?
I just wanted to share some ideas I got from the Dalcroze Eurythmics Facebook group. I put a post in there about a month ago because I was thinking about socially distanced in-person teaching, and a few people responded there, so I'd encourage you to go find that post. So some ideas that were shared with me was that we can teach children to be aware of their space, that like we can create step-up activities where their arms are spread far like an airplane and they have to stay so far apart that they'll never touch arms with someone else, right? And that once you teach them to be aware of the space, that you could possibly create activities where they're moving through the room, where they've already built in that awareness that they have to stay that far apart. These ideas were from countries that have outbreaks that are a lot more well managed and contained than ours, and so in the US. And so I don't know if my supervisors and administrators would be okay with that. I'm still waiting to see, but I just wanted to throw out that idea.
Okay.
Yeah, Mary?
Just a couple of, there are a couple of games that are really, that we use, don't we, for beginning to teach them, the children or students or even adult students, about space. Like, so you don't get everyone moving at the same time, but you get some people moving, or you get some people in the space standing still or being still. And it's about developing that kind of practice of, I just keep coming back to what is possible and do what is possible. And another thing about, and I mentioned this in the Dalcroze UK, we had a Zoom cafe, that although it's a great restriction having children even using or only be able to use the space around their desk, or adult for that matter, there are people who can move within, who maybe are not so mobile, who can only move within a wheelchair, for instance. But their movement vocabulary isn't limited. They're still just, there are dancers in England, there are several dance companies, like Kanduko is one of them, where people who have what we would call different mobility, still manage to be expressive and accurate. And I think that point of view is exactly what you're saying, Steve, is what is possible. And also to not just rewrite the rule book.
Right.
And Mary posted a very cool like theater and dance video of artists who are differently abled, and you should repost that, Mary, or maybe email it to us.
I will.
It's very inspiring.
I will. Yeah, that was curated by, I can't remember her name now, somebody. Yeah, it's really, yeah. I'll put it on the Dalcroze UK Facebook book, but maybe I'll share.
All right, guys, 2 more minutes for this topic. So I saw Rebecca and then Emma. Okay, Rebecca pass. Emma?
I selfishly was the one who suggested we try and do this for our topic today. I hope that at some point we'll be able to invite Gregory Risto to share some of the exercises he does with his choir at the National Conference for the US. He did a beautiful class, which was a whole choreographed chair dance, for example, and everyone was in their own space, and it was using recorded music, but it was beautiful. There was score study, it was expressive. So I've been thinking a lot about the different ways that we can build independence of limbs and working with different cues that would be possible to use the furniture that we might be restricted to, or the space that we're restricted to.
Alina asked, does anyone have ideas for how to deal with the acoustics outdoors? Especially if we're masked and trying to avoid singing, do we need amplification? What type of instrument could the teacher use?
I will
So,
put in the chat a microphone that I've seen a lot of music together teachers using in their outdoor classes, and it's under $100 US. I don't know how good it is. I'll be testing it. I can let you know. Sorry, Stephen.
no, not at all. The one little technique that I've been experimenting with the last month or so, I'm working with adult students exclusively, and they all have enough money to be able to find these classes and all. And as a result, they all seem to have earbuds. And so for a class of earbuds, we've been able to do all sorts of fun things outside. That is where they go outside and I am teaching from my studio, and all of a sudden outside is an option in a way it never was before. And so that's one way. It's maybe not at all practical for the public schools or for little kids, but that is one way that all of a sudden I feel like I'm really doing well outside, is that we can share a very intimate sound in a very huge space. Alina, your question about acoustics outside is I think spot on. For years, my students have always said, "Oh, we should take this class outside. That'd be so much fun." And then I know that the acoustics are terrible, and so I always say, "You get the piano outside, and then I'll join you." And then we chuckle, and then we ignore the question because it just has been really difficult to be outside because of because of acoustics, and then second because of the space proximity makes things harder. Now the space proximity is not an option, so we're left with acoustics. Amplification, maybe earbuds would be two. Looking to be, if you can get against a wall, if you can make any kind of like amphitheater, if you can be sort of near the side of a building, or rather than being in the middle of a football field or something, will be easier.
All right, next question. What are the strategies for teaching in hybrid models where you see your students in person some of the time and online some of the time?
And I'll add that hybrid models in some places like my university also can mean I'm live with students in the class while at the same time I have other students at home in wherever they live trying to view in from remote through Zoom.
And that to me sounds really terrifying. Like, I don't know how I would manage that.
Awful. It's absolutely an awful. And then to add insult to injury, we were told that we were expected to deliver an equitable experience at the same time through both modalities. And I just about lost it when they said that. I mean, come on. By definition, they are not equitable. So anyway, any hybrid brainstorms or things people want to think about? Go ahead, Emma, lead us off.
At the Dalcroze School of the Rockies, we've been doing this model hybrid primarily for all of our classes for adults for a number of years. And it seems to go really well, but we actually have somebody who's experienced it as the student. I've only been on the teaching end of things. So I was wondering, Mira, if I could put you on the spot to talk a little bit about your experience of that. And what has been maybe you don't have to worry about saying anything out of line, maybe what your favorite things have been and what things you have kind of rather would have left behind.
Sure, Emma. I think it's been really rewarding. I mean, obviously, because there's no training in my area in the state of Utah. So I've still been able to participate, which is really a special thing for me. But I do think some of the topics that work better, like solfege topics, work so well. Some Eurythmics topics work really well, and others are really challenging. So I understand what Stephen's saying about it being an inequitable situation. I think it's bound to be a disadvantage to be farther away, but it's still better than nothing. I guess that's what I would say. It's definitely still an advantage, and I think we need to value that as much as we can.
Just along the lines of that, Mary mentioned earlier this wording that we've been using in these meetups, which is just what is possible. and trying to reinforce that, like, we should just be thinking about what is possible. At the very beginning in March, I was definitely on the crowd who wanted to stomp my feet and throw a tantrum and turn my back on it all and say, I'll meet you when we all get back to normal. I actually attempted that for a day, and then my administrators were hearing none of it, and then I had to come around. And I have to say, the more time we've been having these conversations and the more teaching I've been doing, there's a lot that is possible, more than I was willing to admit, for sure. There really is a lot that is possible. So the question is strategies for hybrid.
Actually, I want to throw the question back to Emma, which is, if you've taught a class where someone is in person and you have someone on a screen, how do you make sure that you don't forget the people on the screen, and how do you include them?
I have quite a few homeschooled families where they live quite far away, and so weather has been an issue. So not only has this been an intentional kind of a thing in the adult world, but then I've had some more experienced Dalcrozians, but still kids under 12, where they've had to Skype in or Zoom in. Usually I start from the screen and work my way out. So we're going to do this activity, and I think of addressing the people who are on the screen. So I set up kind of a routine for myself so I don't forget them. So I start off with addressing Jack and Josie on the screen, and then I tell everybody how the game is going to work here, and then I go ahead and go forth, and then I kind of keep that flow. And similarly, when we're online and in person, I'll address the people usually on the screen first, and this is just my personal way, and then I work with the people in the room, and I kind of give myself that pattern so that I am kind of falling into a habit where I don't lose anybody. Not always successful, and maybe other people would feel that it should be a different way, but then I also do a lot of making sure I get out into the room and I model, so I'm not just sitting at the keyboard, which I know sometimes we can get a little stuck at. So I get out there and I show something. And then if there's only one person on the screen and they need a partner, I will come over and I'll be their partner in some way from the beginning. So just some ideas of how you can organize yourself. And I found that to work way better than saying, oh, I forgot about you, or oh, this won't work. I am trying to actually have that interaction be part of my classroom flow.
Building routines, yet again, one of the best sets of ideas that we can have, getting it built into the routine. I just love that. It makes me wonder if I can talk my administration into outfitting my room with a projector, and we could project the gallery view of the people at home.
So I brought my TV in and put my computer through it so that the kids could see their friends big on the screen. And, I encourage the families at home to, if they had the possibility to make us big, to go for it. Not everybody does, and it's okay. But if they had the option between a smaller or bigger, go bigger.
Go big. Still, hybrid, more hybrid ideas? Any other thoughts? You wouldn't have to have the firsthand experience. These can also just be questions, or I wonder if this might work. So does anybody have any wonderings of something that might, that we might think of? Monica Wilkinson.
Hello, everyone. I was involved with a conversation with my son, who teaches performance modules actually at 3 different Scottish universities. Don't ask me how he's managed that, but they're all taking different, slightly different routes towards this, but they're doing what you're having to do, Stephen, which is they're being obliged to make the experience the same for those who happen to be in the room at the time, as well as those who are not in the room. And what they're trying to do is alter the courses a bit. I'm not talking about obviously Dalcroze, but performance. I mean, how do you teach performance chamber music? I mean, how can you do it in this circumstance? And I just don't know how on earth they're going to manage to make it equitable. I don't see how they can. But by making some changes, I suppose the idea is that we have to keep the people on board who are not in the room. Or we've got to work extra hard to keep them on board, because they're the ones that are going to complain, aren't they? In a university setting. I mean, obviously for people who are running their own courses, people are coming because they want to, but if you're at university, you're kind of wanting to get your money's worth, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, that's not terrible, but I mean, this is going, you're not alone, Stephen. You're not alone. Everybody's struggling with it.
No, I mean, of course we're going to attempt to make it equitable. I mean, what teacher wouldn't try?
Yeah.
But just that some administrator had the gall to say, and we expect it will be, as though that's possible. That's just what sort of ruffled my feathers a little. So we'll all continue to do our best. And this conversation is really great. Emma's suggestions there of even just making a simple routine where like I address the class in this fashion assures that I make the connection with those people. That's huge for me. Like that'll be, that's obvious and huge. And I wasn't thinking that way at all. We have a question in the chat from Alice about outdoor singing. I assume, and you all can read it there, she ends though by saying, do we still avoid singing even if we're outdoor? I don't think there's a single answer to that. I'm sure different districts, even different municipalities are going to have really different opinions about such things. I'm of the opinion that there must be a limit on you finally got far enough away from each other that you can scream if you want to. There's got to be some sort of limit, but then what's manageable in a school and what is defendable in your career, those are things to really work out with your people. Veronica?
My question about singing is, can you do it indoors with masks on?
Right. And again,
or like if we're indoors teaching with the 6 feet apart and masks on, is all singing out?
And is all singing of the same thing? Like, can you hum?
Right.
Really, is there much difference between talking a little forcefully and lightly singing? Like, I think, I think all of this is on a spectrum. Certainly for those of us who know what singing is, which is not a lot of our administrators, truly. So I think it's on a spectrum. I've already made the case to my school of music that I think solfege singing, which I don't think is the same thing as choral singing, or certainly doesn't need to be, should be seen much more similar to talking than it should be to what would be happening in a choir or in an opera rehearsal. I have my students regularly noodle little melodies with their voice, little dee 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 dee, just for themselves, much more than for some sort of main stage presentation, and I think that should be much more allowable than something we would do. But obviously the answer here is nobody knows. Nobody knows what everybody's willing to uphold or defend or fight for. But I'm fighting for solfege singing personally. Nicole?
This cuts into both conversations about singing and about this issue of equity. So I have been saying since May to my school administrators, I teach, among other things, solfege for college students. And I've been saying since May, we're gonna hum. We're gonna hum with masks on because the amount of air that comes out when you hum, like no one is projecting, even without a mask, but we're all gonna be wearing masks, that's our school's policy. The amount of air that comes out and the direction in which the air comes out when you have an open mouth singing versus closed mouth humming, like it's not even the same. But the other, and then what ended up happening was that I was told that I was gonna have to I was not gonna be able to require my students to be face-to-face. And I decided that I wasn't gonna do a hybrid class because it is impossible to provide an equitable experience. That same idea of equity came to us. So now I'm gonna do it all asynchronously online, which is not the decision I would have wanted to make, and not the decision that my administrators have been fine with me making since May, but it's the decision now. Anyway, the point of that is that I think we have to figure out why we want students to sing. Do we want them to sing? Is it important for us to hear them? Or is it just important for them to use the voice to figure something out? And if it's just to use the voice to figure something out, to have an experience for themselves, and the sound that they make is really like not so consequential as the experience, then I think something like humming will do it just fine. But I think that there are also ways in which we can say to students, okay, I do want you to sing this kind of full voice. When you're by yourself offline, you're going to record it, you're going to send it to me so that you do get that real experience of singing it with nuance, right? With all of this, the great stuff that goes into singing in a Dalcroze way. But I think that a lot of it is really dependent on why are they doing the singing? What's it for? And how can we get that done? Can we get it done with humming? Or should it be something that we take to an individual setting online.
Right. Thank you. I actually, one of the silver linings, and I don't know how to say it otherwise. One of the things that I'm pleased actually that has come up from the last couple months is a question like, what do we want out of singing? Like, why do we sing? I think it's actually a really important set of questions that honestly I hadn't thought about much at all. And I was a voice major, and I've got opera careers, and I mean, lots and lots of singing in my life. And yet I realized that the thing I miss most, and now I'm not talking about solfege, but more like main stage singing and choirs, the thing that I miss most is not the sound, but the ensemble. It's the shared breathing. That's what I miss. I miss the intimacy of making music with my breath, with others and their breath. And that actually was brought into focus when they said you have to stop doing choir. And I think it's a really important thing, and something that we'll continue to then search for ways to get back to as things are figured out.
Right. I have a new question. I'm so sorry, but if you feel passionately about your topic, you can always bring us back. But I will throw the new question in, which is, what are strategies for beginning a new school year or term in online only model? I know I have a class of 10 kindergarten students that I've never met before. And if we're online only, what does it mean to start a school year, especially if you're 5 years old or any age?
Anita.
Yeah, we're going to hit this problem at Junior Guildhall in London. And one of the things that we're really hoping to do is to employ the parents in a way that we wouldn't have otherwise done with the very young students, so that they will have partner to work with, they will have someone to engage with, because normally the parents just wouldn't be there. But if it's going to be an online class, the parents will need to be there, but we're going to actively engage them to model and be part of the class.
Any thoughts to families that can't be there? Is there anyone talking about that? I assume that not every parent, I assume like some families, both parents work, right? Mary?
I think it would be widely in the UK widely expected that the parents for that age to be there for safeguarding issues, and I think it would be.
Yeah, I guess someone has to be around. Yeah,
it would have to be on the principle of safeguarding. Would have to be that the parents would be present in the UK.
Right. I wonder if if there will be pushback. I can see, at least in the States, that there would, even if I as the parent am working from home so that I keep an eye on my kid over there, I still have to work. And so I'm sort of, forced to be in this Zoom meeting with my office while they're hopefully over there doing that thing.
This is a Saturday school, and it's a private school, so people have invested money in order to, and they're at the beginning of the children's career at the Guildhall, so they would probably be, I'm assuming,
They'll
quite
be better.
invested.
Yeah. I think Adriana has wanted to say something for a while.
Yes, a couple of things. Indeed, I have to prove with everybody that, yes, the parents are our best friends right now. Not even the administrators and the parents, because without the parents, we really cannot really go too far. I couldn't teach without parents for anybody under 6. Or the classes fall apart, and I have to do them shorter, definitely not 45 minutes classes. By the time when I had to do all these things, I really wrote very clear emails to the parents and with very clear guidelines what I expect them to do, and if they can do it or not, because that's has to do with the success of the class. So parents, I think that by now know that they are needed, and if they work, they have to figure out something, just like babysitting or something. If they want to stick to the music education of the kids, they have to do the effort, just like we do the effort. That's one thing that I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say, I don't know how it's going to be the singing with the shield instead of mask, because I cannot sing, nobody can sing with mask, and I cannot even breathe. I have asthma. I cannot walk around with the mask. After 20 minutes I get dizzy, I can't breathe. So I need to have the shield on my face. That's another thing. So I don't know how that with the singing is going to go. probably everybody saw that you can buy these transparent masks because some people have to read. It's so muffled when you speak, but when you move the mouse, probably you saw that. And the third thing, that I was a student in this summer in Eurythmics class, which was a hybrid class. So the teacher was teaching for students who were with him in the room, and for another couple of students who were on Zoom. I didn't feel left out it's very clear that it was a different experience. But I was so busy with what I'm supposed to do, and when I wasn't sure, and cover my little space that I have at home. So, but when I wasn't sure, I was watching what the class life does, and that was as valuable, and I could go back to my thing. So I'm not very sure how much the students on Zoom are going to be upset that they are, don't get the same experience. Especially if you never had a life experience in Eurythmics, you don't know what you are missing. So I think it can be negotiated and make students to understand that there are things that they get better, because nobody picks on me when I move because they don't care me. So there are trade. And the last and not the least is for ensembles and performance of groups, ensembles, choruses, if that it's explained in a very, sophisticated way, that with Zoom for this period, you can teach other skills that you cannot teach during the live, because you always have a performance, you have to rehearse, you have to make sure that you are ready, but now is no pressure of that way. So deeper musicianship skills, or even background in history and background of whatever quartet you are going to play or pieces you are going to sing, can be explored and make the experience of learning more interdisciplinary.
Yep.
And historic. Then, okay, let's do the piece and another piece and the next piece and the other piece.
Right.
That's it.
Thank you so much. There's so many great ideas. We're running shy on time. Veronica, do we have another minute or two for this?
Oh, we have 5 minutes on this question. I don't know.
Great.
Time flows very strange speeds, guys, at various points during this discussion.
So I think we're still looking for onboarding ideas, bringing in new crowds. Yeah, this idea of welcoming a new class only on Zoom is absolutely terrifying to me. So terrifying. I'm absolutely planning on being in the classroom with university students for the first 2 weeks, if only to just retreat then back to Zoom, shortly after. But I just don't know how to do it otherwise. So
Jill, were you raising your hand? Jill Gleim? I don't know if that was a raised hand or not, but you'll have to unmute if you want to say something.
I was talking to Adriana. Hi, Adriana. So I'm in the midst of doing a camp, an integrated camp online, and I terribly miss ensemble. It's all about us creating ideas and doing them together. And I'm having a terrible time getting help from parents, even though we did set down guidelines. So I'm wondering, are you educating in your guidelines? Do you speak to the parents ahead of time? Do you actually speak to them, or is it, see, I think I should have just been in person. Yeah, you're good at that. Yeah, because the parents, just like somebody said, they're over there while the kids are over here. And the kids are more interested in what the parents are doing, when snack, and it's really a very unhelpful thing. And with the kids under 6 and under, they can't leave a little 3-year-old alone. They're not going to do anything. So I get the camera off, the microphone off, and the kid's name, and I'm like, are you there? And then they turn it on and the chair is empty, or it's just been and then I have to call the parents and say, where's your kid? Go ahead, Adriana.
I have my European finger. I come from Europe. you do what I tell you.
I know, you're
So
very good.
from a more structured way and a little bit more forceful, that's what we do.
Yep.
And if you want to have it, that's how it is. You have to be a little bit more, you know.
Right. Emma, did you have a hand up?
I think there's kind of two things at play. Families need something for their children to do while they're trying to figure out how to work from home.
Exactly.
Can't pretend that isn't true. I also have many colleagues who are feeling very strict that the parents must be there. The way that I'm kind of sneaking around this, and I also feel like that's where the most amount of learning is going to happen. However, that's not always the reality if both parents have to work. So one of the things that I'm doing is that I am really structuring my first several classes that involve things like games where I need the parents there. So I'm kind of tricking the parents into being involved. We're going to play this ball game. We have this scarf. We need a partner for this. And from the beginning, and like I really structure it down, like there's lots of great recorded music, there's lots of things for us to do, and the parents are engaged. Because it's really not the kids who are unengaged, it's the parents unengaged and the kids modeling after their parents.
Exactly.
So then, as we get more comfortable in the Zoom world, I have plenty of 5- and 6-year-olds who are doing beautifully on their own in class. And I don't mean that to be controversial, but we've had this transition of parents being there, helping them, learning what's appropriate, learning the structure just like any classroom, but this is very new, so we kind of have to treat it like it's from the beginning. And then as we go, I use my props a lot, whether it's that there's paper and markers and we're showing each other the things that we just did. And so I follow my routine even more than I normally would. And I have lots of opportunities for the kids to take solos and show me what they're doing, or there's a specific part in the flow of things where I let each child show me something so that I'm always engaging, and I say, okay, so now we're going to be bugs like so-and-so, and now we're going to be butterflies like so-and-so, and horses like this person, and that I'm really trying to make sure that I'm engaging with each kid and they know that I see them. And that while the parents are there, I set that precedent, because it's more that I also want the parents to know that I see their children too, because I'm Eastern European and I'm used to people listening to me, but here in this culture, that's not always how things go in America. And I don't mean that to be a blanket, but that is, sometimes there's a little bit of like, okay, I'm going to turn the iPad on and walk away so my kid is entertained. And so I want to first set up the expectation that we're going to actively listen, we're going to actively be involved. And then as the parents maybe do, their life does come in and interrupt. They have another baby, they have other things going on, that there's some space where the children know the routine and they know what the expectation is.
Again, the solutions there are so much about setting good routines. And then there were beautiful ideas there about bringing the parents in at the beginning of establishing those routines. It was brilliant. Monica?
Yeah, so the Saturday school that I work at, they just decided that no classes were going to happen at all last term, so I haven't taught those classes online yet. From September to December, they are going to be online, and I've been given no choice in this. And my initial reaction was that I would not start. I would just say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to start a new group of 3-4-year-olds, the youngest group, because they don't know what it is. They won't have experienced life in the room together and seen each other. And that I was going to say, I'm not going to do it until we can be in the room together. And but the groups that have been together before, I think, at least they will recognize each other. And I just wondered whether anyone, I know there are people here who have actually taught online, whether anyone could give me some advice about whether they think I should start the new class, or if I have the chance to not do it, what they would advise.
I'm a little biased because we've been doing a lot of classes online new, and I would say go for it. It's its own social construct, its own group of people with their own set of social, crests and falls and all that sort of stuff. So they'll find a routine, and you'll find a routine with them. Go, Veronica, sorry.
Just really quick, something that I've seen work really well at Integral Steps classes is we did this summer camp where we had 45 minutes of class, a 15-minute break to be off screen and go get a snack, and then 45 minutes of class again. But we left the call open, and the teachers muted themselves and turned off their video, and these kids just started hanging out with each other on Zoom. And we had like 5 and 6 year olds being like, let's play this game, let's play pretend, I'm talking to you. And then like this other kid interrupted them, and they were like, no, you need to be quiet because I'm talking right now. Like, they get the whole Zoom interruption protocol, and it was like really adorable to see them create their own social culture. So I would just encourage you to leave that kind of time. And, you know, I was around if they started getting inappropriate and like being like, I'm naked. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, do I need to go turn off that kid? But like, it's really nice to give them that space, and it makes the class more real, because that's what is part of class, is those social interactions.
I'll add to that we often show up to these meetings early and stick around just a little bit late. And it would go on longer if I didn't shut it down. Like, the adults like it too, you know, just that offline time, being able to see each other. Catherine, and then I think we have to switch.
Just my top tip for young ones is cuddlies. I use, if they bring their own, and then so we've kind of eyeballed the camera at the end of a song, and we've come in from funny angles, and we've dropped them in rests, and it's been really, really useful for them to have their thing and hide behind it, or hide it in the room, or do anything with the cuddly. It's just giving them a lot more confidence. So that's what I'm going to be doing with.
So next, Stephen, you're going to try that with your college kids.
Absolutely, we're all over it. We're all about it. They would love it. There's no question.
All right, so I'm gonna put a pause on this, but these look like all fabulous questions, so maybe we'll keep these questions in the format for our August meeting. I wanted to give Elena Araoz a chance to speak about her project, and Elena has joined us. So Elena, if you could do it in 3 minutes or less, because we also have another announcement. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. Veronica invited me to another one of these meetings months ago, and so much good came out of that meeting for me. I was talking about creating virtual theater and virtual opera, which I've been doing. And the conversation turned into how we do that. How do we create beauty in this Zoom virtual landscape? And then of course, it always turns to, as it seems like you guys are talking about, rehearsal procedures and best practices for rehearsal. And what I found is that the conversations about working with young people have helped me so much in my working in a rehearsal room with professionals, but also in my teaching. I'm a professor at Princeton. So what I decided to do was to start a whole research project. And that project is, I'm going to show you the website, which is in a sort of an auxiliary part of our big academic paper. I think I can share. No, I can't share screen. Can I share screen?
You can now. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is what we launched, and so much of this has come out of what I learned talking to you guys. So it's called Innovations in Socially Distant Performance. And as you can see, it says Innovations in Socially Distant Performance is a project which studies the aesthetics, philosophies, tools, and artists who are transforming the fields of virtual live performance and socially distant productions. This continually updated website is a place to create community, share information, and document the expanding art form. And one of the things that I think is particularly interesting is that there's so little writing about how people are rehearsing and teaching in this Zoom format. And so I'm here to both say this is a resource. Like, for example, we have a whole section under production, which is just virtual tools that you can use for all kinds of things. We have a whole section under Chronicles, which is interviews of what other people are doing. But there's literally so little thought, I think, put into how do we rehearse, how do we make, and how do we teach class. So I'm here to invite anybody who might be willing to talk to us about your work, about the techniques that have come up in whatever your specialization is. Because we're trying to gather what is really happening in the field. That'll become part of a bigger academic paper. Of course, everyone will be credited for all of everything that they offer to us. And then we have been putting some of it online under process. This is what we found so far. And we've made our own rehearsal and performance class best practices for professionals and students. And then a couple of other people who are out there talking about these things. So I think that's it.
Thank you, Elena. Would you mind clicking on that rehearsal best practices document? I
Yeah,
just want everyone to see like how detailed and awesome that is.
thank you. I wrote this after working with my students now for a while, and we talk about how do we take care of the room, what are some best practices about having a good rehearsal, different techniques, how do we deal with things like screen fatigue, how do we deal with also things like screen addiction, which so many students have, and how do we keep the energy up in the room. And anytime we add something new that's come from an interview, we always credit the person. So if anybody was willing to offer anything to us or to have a conversation with us or an interview with us, we would love it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's great to see you back. We were so impressed with the work that you showed the first time that you came. I encourage everybody to check that out and try to participate in the study. We all need more thoughtful contribution to all of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Elena. Rebecca Hampel emailed me with a question, and I just thought it would be a great question to throw out to the group. So, Rebecca.
You got to unmute.
There, did that work? Great.
Yep.
So I have heard about people teaching classes to seniors, and especially people with dementia or memory issues. And I'm wanting to get information about how to begin that. And it sort of follows right along with what we've just been talking about, because I would have to start it online as it stands right now. And being down here in Texas, I'd also like to be able to create classes online because we don't really have a lot around here. But if anybody could offer some ideas about how to get a class started, what do you do for teaching seniors? How do you do that kind of stuff? That's what I'm looking for.
And I would appreciate it if you could send, so Rebecca, if you want direct contact, maybe you can put your email in the chat. And then if you have like an article or a website, rather than like a personal conversation with Rebecca, then please email it to me so I can distribute to everyone. And also, if you could write in the chat right now, if you think, if there's enough interest in this topic, we can also try to make a whole VDM meetup about teaching seniors and have that as a big topic for a meeting. So just let me know if that's something that's of interest to you.
And then, so Rebecca, just very quickly, there's really a very exciting set of classes that have been going on now for more than 20 years, different places in the world. The most famous is a series of classes that have been ongoing in Geneva, Switzerland, where they have the same group now of octogenarians who started in their 60s and have been continuing on in regular classes. There have been research studies using that population, claiming and being able to prove all sorts of grand benefits. And there's even what I thought was a really wonderful study that put those senior Dalcrozians head to head against chess masters. That is, seniors who spent a similar amount of hours every week playing intense chess versus the seniors who spent the same amount of hours every week doing just Dalcroze exercises, and comparing sort of what they were good at and what they weren't, and how their facilities continued on. We also have Leslie Upchurch in New York City has a regular protocol series of classes with seniors at I believe, her Jewish Community Center. And then I'm sure there's more than that around.
And I think Leslie was teaching her senior classes online, because she definitely put it on the online resources document. So maybe check that out, and she's probably going to keep doing it in the fall. So you might even be able to observe her teach seniors online, which would be super cool.
Yeah, and Leslie is wonderful and teaches in New York, and also is one of our faculty at the Carnegie Mellon Dalcroze Training Center. Christine, in a minute.
Yes, I just wanted to say if we could get Ruth Janada, who does the seniors class in Geneva, if we could get her to do a master class, that would be great.
Yeah, Ruth.
I would love to do. I've done a summer course with her in Italy, and she just touched on what she does with seniors. But I know that she actually does a course for it in Geneva, I believe, and I've seen the video.
She's absolutely amazing. She's one of my very, very favorite.
Yes, and I believe she speaks English fairly well, so I think she could do it.
No, she could absolutely do it. No, we love Ruth. You also all might look at the proceedings from the International Dalcroze Studies Conference, IDSC, in Quebec. That is 2 conferences ago, and Ruth taught a demonstration class at that conference. I'd be surprised if that video is available through their proceedings. We could keep on going. You know why? Because this is our community. You're my people, and we would have no trouble going for another hour. I'm 100% sure, but we are at time. Veronica, do we have anything that we need to remind people of or say before we?
Sign up for Sandra's class this weekend and Michael's redo class in 2 weekends after that. Our next meetup is in August on
Is it the 4th?
August 4th or 5th. I think most people here are from this half of the hemisphere, so it's August 4th for you. And we have plans for the fall. We'll publish them as we get them. Oh, also if you have watched any video recordings of past meetups and you remember, oh, there was a great 5-minute chunk about this, or someone went off on a tangent and shared 10 awesome ideas in 3 minutes. It was near the end of the session. I remember it. If you could send us those timings from the videos, if you wouldn't mind, that will help us make little extracts so that we can post them on the website. Because yes, some people have time to watch an hour-long video, but some people are like, I have 5 minutes, give me something good. And so our hope is to put that on the website, and Stephen has graciously agreed to do the trimming, but he's like, I need help with the timing, so it will be a great team effort. If you could
we want to crowdsource this. So the hope is that we can put all of you to work, just in little bits, to help collect any little snippets that you think, oh, that would be a great one to snip out and share, rather than Veronica and I going back and listening to 13 hours of videos and trying to pull those out. So if you just happen to find yourself in one of those videos and are thinking, oh, while I'm looking for this other thing, I'll also look for a snippet to send out to them. We are hoping to pull some excerpts to post. Thank you. Thank you, Veronica. Thank you, all of you, for everybody who contributed to the conversation. Stay in touch, and we'll hope to see you at Sandra's class. When else are you going to take a class with Sandra Nash? Seriously, sign up for the class. And then we'll see you hopefully on Saturday or Sunday for the class, and we'll see you on the 4th or the 5th for the last VDM of the summer.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye, goodbye.
All right, I'm going to stop the recording.